This is Justin.
And this is Haley. You're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize the conversations around money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom. Hi Toasties, welcome to The Price of Avocado Toast, episode 7.
Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been following us from the start of this thing, we are so glad to have this conversation with you today. So this past week, Haley went up and visited her great-grandma, Calliope's great-great-grandma, in Oregon. And while I missed them, I was still stoked because the day before they left, Haley and I had our August budget meeting. We squeezed it in just in the nick of time. And we got things all set up. And because of that, we thought, hey, episode 7, we want to definitely talk about starting a budget. And we are glad that we set ourselves up on the right foot. Particularly last month, we had a little bit of a win in our budget.
We actually came in under our food budget for the first time ever. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah.
We have, come in way over for several months. We started budgeting really in October loosely, and then seriously in November of 2019. And it's been really hit and miss because when you start a budget, you have to give yourself like 3 months to really figure it out. And it really did take us like 3 or 4 months to kind of figure it out. But since then, it's now August 2020, and we can say for last month, we came in for the first time ever under or at the budget for the food. So that's a huge win for us because we have just been blowing the food budget month after month after month. So high five.
Woo. Psh. It's exciting too because in episode 6 we talked about hey, episode 7 we're going to talk about budgeting. And then in between the 2 weeks we figure out, hey, your July budget for food was on track.
Yes.
So it's very serendipitous. It's hey, you're doing the right things. It's okay if you want to share your budget episode now because you're actually practicing what you preach. We can't be yeah, here's how your budget works, but we just blow it every month. We finally got it.
That's too funny. I actually, like he just said, I went up to Oregon to go visit my great-grandma. And I set out a budget before I even left. And this is the first time I think we've ever planned for something like that in advance. I sat down and was like, okay, I'm going to have the hotel. I went with my mom, so I was thinking we got to split the hotel. Gas, we just got a Suburban, so that's a gas guzzler, which we normally don't really care about because we don't go anywhere. But this is an 8-hour road trip, so I was factoring in gas and then food. And so I put that all in, and I actually came in $10 under that that we planned for. So that was cool too. So I feel like we are ready to talk about the budget because we are trying to do it right.
Honey, in the famous words of Al Scardino, we're not trying, we're doing. On Instagram, we have about half of our following from the debt-free community, and many of those listeners already know how to set up a budget. They're already practicing those good money principles. But we have this other half of following that is our friends and family, and some of them have an ish budget, kind of doing it. Others are yeah, I don't really have a budget. And I think it doesn't really matter where you fall on the income spectrum of how much you're making. A good budget's a good budget. It doesn't matter whether you're paying off debt. It doesn't matter whether you are throwing money to pay off your house early. A good budget's a good budget. We felt hey, let's start giving those people advice on how to do a budget because the debt-free community's probably already got it. And, you and I were talking earlier and you said it could be a good brush up for them too. Maybe they'll hear something from us that they haven't heard before. So the starting point, the first thing, which is my favorite thing because it forces you and I to get to sit down together, is the famous budget meeting. And I know that sounds weird for some people. I know they're what? You guys are husband and wife, you sit down and have to have a budget meeting. And it's yeah, we do. Because financially we weren't doing the right things because we weren't looking at the numbers appropriately and we weren't attacking them as a team. And the budget meeting is the first thing that makes it a team effort. We want to make sure that the listeners understand what is an actual budget meeting? What does that look like? And so we're going to set the stage for you. Pick a day of the week. Sunday through Saturday, whatever is best for you, pick a time that's best for you, whether that's early in the morning when the kids are still asleep, whether that's in the evening when you guys are able to sit down after dinner and focus, and you're going to actually have a budget meeting where you talk through what the next month looks like. Now, if you have an August budget, you don't want to be working on it on August 2nd. You want to hammer it out like July 30th, July 31st, so that you're actually ready when August 1st hits. You can't be a day late and a dollar short, so to speak. What do you think are some of the exciting things for you about the budget meeting? Like what are some things that you get amped about when coming to the budget meeting?
Well, I really like what you said, where we just sit down and talk about money, because, we just get so jacked up about that. So that's fun. But each month it gets easier and it becomes more fun, and it's just this thing that we do. So I really like that it's done before the month and we know where we're going. I also feel like the budget meeting really sets the tone for the entire month. That's where we plan everything we're going to do. Like for the last couple months, we've had camping trips here and there. So we're factoring in, okay, during this chunk of time, we're going to be away from home. We need to factor in the boarding for our dogs, food, extra gas costs, the camping site fee. So stuff like that. And you were in a wedding this past weekend. We had to factor in the tuxedo and you being gone for the rehearsal dinner and all of that. So we didn't make dinner that night. So all of these things, we're thinking like 3-4 weeks in advance. And before it was like one day at a time. Hey, what are we having for dinner today? I don't know. Let's just go get some tacos down the street, Yeah. And so I like that it's projecting the entire month. So it's just really laid out cleanly. And then we have something to follow.
Definitely. And I think that the budget meeting, at least for me, being kind of like half spender, half nerd, really helps me tap into my nerd side of being like, okay, we see these numbers, we see where we're supposed to be at with these things, we see where we're supposed to go. And so the budget meeting, you guys, you want to sit down, like I said, pick any time, sit down, just you and your partner, or if you're doing your budget by yourself, you by yourself, and really look at how much money you need to spend on particular things. And we'll get into the actual nuts and bolts of the budget in one sec, but we really want to talk about the habits and practices of a budget meeting. So some really important things, be ready and come with an open mind.
That's huge.
Yeah, come with the appropriate information that you need. Be ready to speak your truth to your partner. There's just some really important practices, but we figured we would each give you our non-negotiable because your household might be a little bit different. So, honey, what is your number one non-negotiable when it comes to the budget meeting habits and practices?
I have a few, but I think the biggest thing for me is that we go to our meeting not necessarily with no phones, but with no distractions. Because when we're doing the meeting, we're sitting down on our phones on the budgeting app and discussing things. So there is another place where our attention is going, but we are also solely focused on what we're doing, and the TV is not on. We're not sitting there texting people or FaceTiming. Our attention is with each other and with the budgeting app that we're using at that time. So I think just coming and being focused without any other distractions is huge. We also wait till the baby's sleeping because that's a huge distraction, and we need to be able to really just sit down and be vulnerable with each other. And if you're not vulnerable, then you're not going to be on the same page. And I think there have been many times where I'm like, hey, I'd like to do this or buy this that month. And then maybe you don't agree with that. And we have to discuss, like, maybe that's not in the budget this month or the other way around. And so if you're distracted by outside factors, that vulnerability and honesty cannot happen.
I think my number one non-negotiable, just kind of following your train of thought, is that things are up for discussion. If there's an event coming up, you discuss it. If you spent too much on one line item the last month, you discuss it. If you need to rearrange some funds, you discuss it. You don't just kind of cut and paste and stick hardwire to what you did, because things are fluid, life is fluid, and you've got to be flexible. And compromise is important in any relationship, whether it's between partners or between partners in their budget or a single person in their budget. Like, you got to be ready to compromise and look at things a little differently. So the two non-negotiables, listeners, put those distractions away. If it's the phone, try not to respond to those texts. Get off of Twitter, get off of Facebook, whatever it may be. Stick to your budgeting app, and then also be ready to actually discuss with your partner what your budget needs to look like.
the budget meeting is just the talking aspect. Now you need to actually do something with it. We need to write down the budget and take it into action. The stuff that happens during the budget meeting is just a conversation that happened, and now you need to actually do something with that, whatever you agreed on, with that information. We have a couple different options here. You can use a pen, paper, spreadsheet, or budgeting app. The pen and paper and spreadsheets tend to not really be the most realistic option for people these days because it really makes it hard for you to hold yourself accountable with all of the pieces. Remember when we did the spreadsheet?
Yeah, we were all over the place. It was ridiculous.
It was really just like an outline for us. We had a spreadsheet budget for like over
in quotations.
A year. Yeah, I mean, it was a hot mess. It was really just an outline of how much we wanted to spend on each thing, but we didn't track it at all. We didn't go back and look at it or really, there was no accountability. And I think that's the biggest part about why we do not use the spreadsheet anymore. Mm-hmm. So we use a budgeting app, and there are a couple different budgeting apps. But the reason the budgeting apps work so well for us is because they are synced to your bank account. So every dollar. Can you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah. You and I use Every Dollar, and we currently have the Every Dollar Plus version. But what is Every Dollar? So Every Dollar was Dave Ramsey's Ramsey Solutions budget app that they created. They've since consolidated all of their stuff under Ramsey Plus. So the app is now Ramsey Plus for the Every Dollar app that we use. But let's just look at Every Dollar, the normal budgeting app. Every Dollar allows you to write out your budget and give you some clear guidelines for the different items that might be in your budget. Now, the only downfall is, much like pen and paper or spreadsheet, you have to track all your spending manually. So you're keeping receipts, you're entering it in under each line item. You've got to do that on your own. They also do, though, have the Every Dollar Plus option, which is $130 annually. And that's the option that actually syncs to your bank account, and it auto-populates the spending when you use your debit card. So let's say I spend at Starbucks. Well, the Starbucks tag is going to run into my Every Dollar app, and then I can then place it into whichever line item I choose. So it's really convenient because you don't have to track the spending per se, like saving receipts. You better be tracking your spending because that's why you have a budget. But it at least gives you the exact dollar and coin amount to whatever you spend. And so we're really productive with Every Dollar Plus. Again, it's part of the Ramsey Plus new app that has, FPU, the Baby Steps app, and Every Dollar Plus in there. And if you're interested in using that, they actually have a 7-day free trial right now. So you can go and look and see if you'd be better having it auto-populate for you. If not, you can just get the manual Every Dollar app and enter it on your own. But we've been really successful with this other method of it actually doing a lot of the work for us. So it's been kind of nice. Talk a little bit more about the other tool that Emily shared with you, though, because this seems like it could also help.
Yeah. Everyone on the debt-free community seems to be really using the Every Dollar app or the YNAB app. So YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. And it's really similar to the Every Dollar app. It has pretty much identical interface. You enter in your income, you break it up based off of how you want to spend your money, and it's the same concept. You're giving every dollar a name. You end up having a zero-based budget, and it's very similar. The real difference is just the cost. The YNAB app has a longer free trial, so you can try it for a month. They have a 34-day free trial, and you can cancel whenever. The pricing for it, you can actually do monthly or annually. As for the Every Dollar app, you have to do it for the entire year. You have to pay the $130 up front. But the YNAB app, you can pay $11.99 monthly, or you could do $84 for the entire year and just do it that way. What I love about both of these apps is that they are zero-based budgets. That has been huge for us. We started, and I remember looking back, because, I don't know actually about the YNAB app, but the Every Dollar app, you can go back in time. It syncs to your bank account, and you can go back a couple months, go through all of your expenses and all the things that you've paid for and be like, oh my gosh, we did it. Realizing we were spending $700 a month on average going out to eat. And that was just at restaurants. So it's a huge accountability piece that you don't get if you're just tracking things with receipts. Because those receipts that you don't get, or the receipt that you crumple up and you just throw in the trash, it's really easy to just lose track.
I also think it's really important because, like, when we go to Costco, we're not just getting food at Costco.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting other things that might go into a different line item. And if you don't save that receipt, you know, if you do something wrong with it, then you just decide, oh, I remember I saw this debit charge for $357 at Costco. I'll throw that all in food. Well, $80 of that might have been something else, and you can't track that because you didn't save the receipt. But if you save the receipt and then you also have the exact pull-up from Costco, you know, you can easily sort it into those budget apps. So it's really cool. You keep mentioning zero-based budgeting, and it's so important. I think people really need to understand this clearer. The zero-based budget idea is that your income minus your expenses equals zero. You write your budget to equal zero for the income that you're getting each month. If you are paying off debt, you're going to write in, hey, I'm spending, $242 to go towards debt. Or if you're saving up to buy a house, hey, we've got $506 left after a zero-based budget. That $506 is going to go to saving up for the house, so we hit zero. Your income minus your expenses has to hit zero. And it's really important that it gets to that because you and I, we're not doing a zero-based budget.
Oh, no.
Back in the day, we were running like a negative-based budget.
Yeah, we first started teaching and we were getting our salaries. And I think we were bringing home, it was around $6,000 a month. And we went back, we got the every dollar, we tracked everything, and we were spending, first off, we had more money, so we spent more money. And then all of a sudden, we had more money, so we spent more money, and then we spent way more money. It just didn't really make sense. So instead of spending the $6,000, we were spending like $7,500 to $8,000 a month, which means just because you make more money doesn't mean you just need to spend it all. Mm-hmm. And that is huge. So when you have these apps to help you figure out where your money's going, you should have money left over, because the next step is actually figuring out your four walls.
So your four walls, this is where you're going to start your budget. So we've got the idea of the budget meeting. We've decided what the best tool for us that we're going to use is to track our budget, and now we're actually going to get started. And we're ready to start our zero-based budget by looking at our four walls first. Now, the four walls are really important. You've got housing, food, utilities, and transportation. And they're unique to each specific item. Let's start with housing. We can look at our housing, whether we have a mortgage and an escrow account or a rental and some renter's insurance. It does not matter. We're going to lump whatever we spend on housing, the building itself, into that housing. Now, we're not talking about home repairs. That's a different line item that maybe is in your emergency fund. But we're talking about the housing itself, the actual building. So write that into your budget first, because you need to have a roof over your head. That should be the first thing you account for. And I think it's really important that people understand this is where a lot of people get stuck, because it is so very easy nowadays to be house poor. We get into the mindset of, I need, when really all your brain is saying is, I want. I want a bigger house. I want the big backyard. I want this space. I want that. What do you truly need, and what can your family afford?
And that's something that we battle like every day.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on Zillow just scrolling and trying to find that bigger house for that dream that I want. But right now, we do not need 2,500 square feet and 4 bedrooms. That's not realistic for our small family of 3 with our soon-to-be 3 dogs. Like, that's not what we need. What we need is some shelter. And that's where we really have to figure out what can you afford and what should you afford.
You've got to look at, like you said, what your family can afford. And a good guideline and our recommendation for the people out there who are just starting their budget is your housing cost should be about 25% of your income. Now, where we live in wine country, that might be hard for people to wrap their brains around. And that might be difficult after the fires. And we get that. We understand that. But we're still going to tell you that our recommendation is that your housing costs are about 25% of your income. And the reason being that that's the quickest way for you to maximize your income and to begin to get out of the financial issues you're having. That may be difficult for some, but we have to stick to that recommendation. So you've got the first wall, and that's housing. The second wall is going to be food and groceries. And honey, you mentioned earlier that we finally got our food budget under control, and you post on Instagram all the time our meal plan, and we meal plan for the month, we grocery shop, and we're trying to find ways to do it. And I think it's really important to mention that a lot of people say, well, you can just eat this every single night. And I agree with that. But this is that one budget item where you and I have it a little bit higher. And I'm going to let the listeners know that that reason is because your health is important. Yeah. And if you're somebody who struggles with some of your eating habits, I don't want to tell you to make poor choices for your health just to save a couple bucks. So, for example, in our household, there's some things that you and I both love that might be a little bit more inexpensive to eat, but they're just not great for our bodies. And we're going to do what we need to set that budget up appropriately for food.
So our budget for food every month, now if you live in California, you might relate to this. If you live in Wisconsin, you might think we're crazy. I'm just pulling states out of my head right now. I don't know what it costs to live in Wisconsin, but ours is $500 a month for groceries, and then we budget $75 to $100 for restaurants, or under restaurants that also falls like Starbucks, stopping and getting something to eat at the gas station or grabbing a coffee. Those go under restaurants, not in the actual grocery budget. Now, if you live somewhere else and you have a family of 3 living off a $250 grocery budget, that's great. But that's just what our number is, and we believe in transparency, so I felt like it's important for you guys to kind of know where we're coming from with that. Now, you mentioned the meal planning. That is, I think, the most important thing. If you don't plan your food, then you're constantly thinking, well, what are we going to eat? Oh, I'm hungry. I want some Chick-fil-A. I want some Taco Bell. Then your mind starts craving things instead of just thinking, okay, this is what we're having because it's planned.
Yeah.
And we already have the food.
Yeah.
So we do a meal plan for the entire month, which sounds a little crazy, but it's really just an outline. It's not like that's what we have to eat, and we don't stick to it like completely. That would be a lie if I said that. This is really just an outline for us, and it's something for us to look at when we buy the groceries. So today, for example, we went to Costco for the month of August. We're recording this on the 3rd. We're a couple days late, but like we said, we were just busy this weekend. I went to Oregon and Justin was in a wedding. So normally we would have done this around the end of the last month or like the first day of the month. But today we went and bought a bunch of groceries after we planned for the month. And we were doing groceries once a month, a big giant haul at Costco. And we found that we were buying all this food that kind of just went bad because we couldn't eat it fast enough. And so now this month we're going to try, we still plan for the whole month, but we're going to go to the store every 2 weeks and see how well that works out for us.
I think it wasn't quite that we were letting all this food go bad, but it was like wanting to spend on things that are good for our bodies. We were letting like these veggies and stuff go to waste because there's so much of them. So we've decided instead to just supplement by going to the local farmer stand. And we're not going to get a ton of produce from Costco. We're just going to get what we can get with some big items and then hit the farmer stand when we need. And that's going to be fine for our zucchini and our mushroom and stuff like that.
And let's be real, the local farmer's market is way better.
Agreed.
We kept getting strawberries. This is a little side tangent. We kept getting strawberries from Costco that would just rot. And I don't know why, but the ones from the local farmer's market, they tend to stay better. So we're going to enjoy that. So we talked about the first 2 walls. We talked about housing. We talked about food. The next thing you need to factor in is utilities. Utilities actually have several different parts to it. So we believe that utilities consist of water, gas, electric, internet, phone, and trash. Not everyone would agree that phones and Wi-Fi are essential, but we do.
Yeah, we're both teachers and doing distance learning, and other people have kids at home and they need internet. And unfortunately, in the 21st century, that's a utility. So we're going to treat that like a utility. And you're going to look at, I'd like to say, we looked, I think, at probably like a 6-month average for those bills when we set up our budget. And you're going to use that number in your budget. So take a 6-month average of your water payment, your gas payment, your electric payment, your internet, your phones, and go ahead and lay those into your budget. And one of the interesting things about utilities is that this is both where you can potentially cut some money, but it's not because you're switching provider, it's because you're being more conscientious.
Yeah.
So you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, we can shut off some of these lights more often. We can, maybe not take as long a shower as, geez, I already sound like a dad. Oh my gosh, you turn off the lights and cut the water. But really, you're looking at how can we save some money on these things. Ryan, our coach, pushed us to look at our internet and look at our phones, and we cut some there. But looking at water and gas and electric, that's probably where you can trim some, not by changing your provider, but just by simply being more conscientious. And again, 6-month average on those utilities, see what you can save by being more mindful.
And I also want to add that once you have the average and you're looking at the budget, you're actually going to be able to track things much easier. You're going to see when the electric company, we're in Northern California, so we have PG&E. I'm able to look at the budget and see when my PG&E bill spiked $100, which actually just happened to us the last couple of months because they adjusted the rates because of the wildfire. So now they have like summer rates, which was not a thing before. And had we not had the budget, had we not had it been sinking, I wouldn't have even noticed that. So with these things budgeted for and you have the averages, you're really able to track the spending during the time of year.
Yeah.
We know during the Christmas time, our lights are definitely more expensive because we have the Christmas tree on, we have all of our lights, and we're home, we have the heater on.
Yeah.
So we know like November through February is going to be expensive, but I wasn't expecting it to be expensive in the summer, so when you have it tracked, you can definitely pay more attention.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, your budget is your friend when it comes to looking at where your money's going. So we've got those 3 walls. We've got housing, we've got food, we just touched briefly on utilities. Touching on the last wall to get your 4 walls put up is transportation. This is important because I want to clarify. This is not transportation because you deserve a car payment. Get rid of that thing. Think of the 2018 4Runner that we got rid of, and boy, did it feel good. You don't need a car payment. Don't have a car payment. Get a car in cash. So, Justin, what is the transportation budget item then? Well, right there we're looking at gas, and we're looking at maybe you're somebody who commutes into work on the bus. So maybe we could call that a bus fare. I think you could get really creative with transportation. Maybe you ride your bike to work. Uber. Exactly. So transportation, you got to get around nowadays. And that's where those things are going to fall. For Haley and I, obviously, it's gas. And like Haley said, she budgeted even the gas up to Oregon. And it was really cool because you came under.
And also car insurance is part of that as well. No matter what, if you have a car, if you have a paid off car, if you are leasing a car, if you have a car that you have payments on, I do not recommend leasing or having a car with payments, but regardless, you need to have car insurance. Transportation covers all of that, and we need to factor in every little thing. And if you have a budgeting app like EveryDollar or YNAB, you can break these down into little teeny categories for every little thing. So for example, you can have a budget line for your mortgage or rent, for your home insurance or your renter's insurance, for groceries, restaurants, your water bill, gas and electric, your Wi-Fi bill, your phone, trash, car payment if you have one, which you shouldn't, you should sell your car insurance, gas, Ubers, whatever these things are for you, whatever housing, food, utilities, and transportation are for you, you can break those down and have specific categories. Your budget will not look like my budget. Your budget will not look like your friend who lives in Florida. Because geography does really make a difference with how much things cost. And so it doesn't really matter about your income at this point. The prices will vary, and so you really need to factor that in.
Absolutely. So we've got our 4 walls up. Well, that's not everything that goes into the budget.
No.
We've got other stuff that's going to go into our budget. And so Haley and I, we had our budget meeting the other day, and one of our August goals was to clean up some parts in our budget that we struggle with. So we've got 2 line items in our budget that I think is good to mention for you all. We do have a miscellaneous, because there's times when random things pop up that we go, oh shoot, we didn't plan for that. And it doesn't have to be much. It can be just a little bit of money, but those moments do come up and you want to plan for those and be aware. For example, I took an Uber home from the wedding the other night, so we're going to go ahead and put that in the miscellaneous. Mm-hmm. We've got the other line item that is household necessities. So we talked about our household necessities and what we felt were important, and we wrote down a list. Honey, what did we come up with?
Well, first off, we had way too much money.
Way too much
money being budgeted towards household necessities. We were budgeting $175 a month for these things that are really just every once in a while. So household necessities for us in our home are toilet paper, paper towels, laundry soap, trash bags, Ziploc bags, foil, envelopes, stamps, printer ink, printer paper, batteries, light bulbs. Light bulbs, I think we've bought light bulbs one time.
Once, yeah.
One time since we've lived here.
Mm-hmm.
Cleaning products, hand soap, dishwasher pods, dish soap. The list could go on and on, but today we broke it down to figure out what are the household necessities that we claim to just put in this category with a lot of money. And then we actually move that way down because we don't need that much money. But if it is a month where we need to buy stamps, and we buy our stamps at Costco, and it's like $50 for 100 stamps or something, then we can adjust that accordingly. But this month, we don't need all that stuff. So we were able to look at this long list and change the number based off of what we genuinely need.
Mm-hmm. So we've got those 2 line items that we feel beyond the 4 walls are really important. And because we like to be a millennial podcast, I'm going to share the third of what I think is the top 3. And it is the subscriptions.
Oh, no.
So we've got Netflix, we've got Hulu, we've got Amazon Prime, we have Spotify. We haven't caught up to Disney Plus yet, but we may end there one day.
Oh, yeah. We have Apple storage, Google storage, because I have 40,000 photos on my phone.
That's not a joke. 40,000. Literally. We were laughing because we watched a reality TV show where these partners traded their phones to look at pictures from their spouse. And Haley thought, what would somebody do if they looked at my phone and saw 40,000 pictures? I'm getting a heart attack thinking about it. It's anxiety up the wazoo. So yeah, we got to pay for extra storage for all those. But you have those subscription items that come up in modern day, and we cut cable, so we have Netflix and Hulu. We got shows and stuff we like to watch, and subscriptions are a big one. And you've got to budget in for those. Those don't go into miscellaneous. That doesn't go into something else. You know exactly what that's going to be monthly. You're going to lay that out in your budget, and you're going to take care of it appropriately. And we don't have kids that are doing club sports or athletics or anything like that. But I would say I wouldn't put that in subscriptions either. That's going to be a totally different line item. So if you're somebody with a kid, put that in a different line item. Think subscriptions being all the tech, gadgety stuff that all the things that we like and enjoy in our lives, and budget those in appropriately.
Definitely. The budget really is yours to create. And I'm looking at ours right now, and we have all of these little categories that we have because we want them. And we budget way more money than we need to for our daughter, Calliope. We budget $250 a month for just baby things because we're first-time parents. And, if we want to get her a little walker thing because she's starting to stand up now, we can afford that because we have the money allocated for her. If she needs new clothes, which right now she's growing out of her pajamas, then we can buy those things. And so the budget is not here to restrict you. It really is your permission to spend. And I keep saying that. I'm going to continue saying that because it's true. If I want to spend $300 on my daughter a month, that sounds a little crazy, but I've given myself that permission. And we have a budget line, for example, for clothing. We don't go shopping all the time. maybe we put like $50 here or $100 here. But then when we want to go buy something, it's not like something that you feel bad about.
Yeah.
You know, you want to buy a nice shirt because school's about to start and you want to have a nice shirt for, you know, Zoom because you don't need pants.
Yeah, seriously.
then you can have that, you know, and not feel bad about going and buying a nice shirt.
Yeah.
At least you're not buying pants.
Mm-hmm. Somebody messaged me the other day, and I think it was my brother, and he said something about like what an expense that they had and how they had planned for it. I think it was like a home remodel or something, and I sent him back a message that said, "Sounds like somebody budgeted for that," and put a wink face. Because really, you know, if you're gonna spend the money and you budget appropriately, that's awesome. I'm not here to say, "Wow, you spent that much on your home repair." Yeah. No, I'm gonna say, dude, good for you for budgeting for that. I think that's huge. So if you've listened to all this episode, we're so glad that you joined us. We're just going to give you, again, the flash review of all that we've talked about with your budget because it's really important for you to be able to hear this. We started off with sitting down for the budget meeting, and we said the important things are no phones and be ready for a discussion. And then we went into the action, honey.
If you are using a pen and paper or a spreadsheet or an app, whatever you're doing, you need to take what you talked about in the budget meeting and put it down somewhere. We recommend the Every Dollar app. The Debt Free Community is also a huge fan of the YNAB app. Both of those apps work really well for syncing to your bank account, and they hold you accountable for everything, including those $5 drinks from Starbucks or that, I don't even know. Literally, the smallest things come up, and I'm like, I don't even remember. Amazon, that... all those little things that you order that just come up, they will pop up in like 20 different orders, and then you're able to really categorize it and hold yourself accountable, or take a hard look in the mirror and realize that you're not holding yourself accountable.
Yeah. Male listeners out there or female listeners out there with a female partner that likes to spend money on Amazon, I am telling you, get one of these apps that's going to track it for you.
It really is huge.
Because you're not printing receipts from Amazon. You don't want to have to look back at stuff. You want to be able to know exactly what it was. And when it auto-populates into your account for you, it's doing half the battle. And my word, if you guys could just see our budget sometimes. And again, we budget those things in. They might be for Calliope. They might be a household necessity. Who knows what they are. But when they auto-populate, we can go back and look and see exactly what it is and put it in the right category.
But most importantly, they're the things that you forget about, like completely space on purchasing. And then they show up and you're like, oh my God, I bought that 4 days ago. Okay, now we have to go categorize it. Or then you realize, oh my God, it's the 5th of the month and I'm already almost at my max. I really have to cool it. It really helps you check yourself. And the final thing you need to do is really think about what goes in that budget. We recommend doing the 4 walls, so that is housing, food, utility, and transportation. And
then you've got the other auxiliary things that we think are important. The top 3 for us are that miscellaneous item, the household necessities item, and the subscription item. And then beyond that, you might have some different things that come up for your family, and you may not even be sure what those exactly are. So if you need help with your budget, reach out to Haley and myself on Instagram. We'll help you any way that we can. If that's you want us to review your budget, if that's you want us to screenshot exactly what we have over to you, we don't mind. Transparency is the name of the game, and we are ready to help.
The most important thing that I want you to take away from this, if you take nothing else away, is that when you start a budget, you have to give yourself some grace. You have to give yourself like 2 to 4 months. 3 months is usually about what it takes. It takes about 3 months to really figure it out. You're going to make your budget and look in the mirror and say, holy crap, I didn't realize I was spending $7,500 on food that month or whatever it is, you know? I mean, you really need to look at what you're spending before you can even make a change. And so use the first couple of months to figure that out. And do not just give up. And I think it's really awesome that these apps give a free trial, but sometimes that 7-day, 34-day trial is not enough. I mean, I definitely would say it's not enough. Yeah. But you can go and test the apps out and then figure out maybe this is for you or it's not, and then move on. But definitely give yourself some grace. It will not happen overnight, and it's probably going to take several months. But I promise you, even if it's 9 months later like us, you might come in under your food budget.
Yeah, exactly. It took us 9 months to get our food budget right. And we still, it's up in the air every month because we're like, okay, how can we trim this up? How can we fix this up? So give yourself some grace. I love that. That's so, so important.
All right, Toasties. Now that you've made your budget, you're really going to look at it and figure out that there's a lot of room for improvement. If you have debt, this is when you're going to look at your budget and say, oh no, I need to change that. And so next week, we are going to be talking about how to pay off debt, how to get started with a debt snowball or a debt avalanche, and we're going to talk about the difference between the two. So make sure you tune in if you have debt at all so we can help you through the process.
Absolutely. That's going to be a wrap on this episode of The Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so thankful that you guys stuck around for this conversation, and we are so proud to be a part of this community. Happy budgeting.
You've got this, Toasties.
If you're interested in speaking more with a financial coach, hit up our coach Ryan at MeFinanciallyFree on Instagram. Use the promo code HELP50 in the consultation notes section to receive 50% off.
Thank you for listening to The Price of Avocado Toast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you vibed with this episode, we would love it if you shared it on your social media and tagged us so we can say thanks.